Hey, thanks so much for tuning to the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth. Today is Talk About It Tuesday. We're going to be diving into Exodus. We're in Exodus chapter 2, and we're talking about the birth of Moses. If you happen to miss the service on Sunday, I talk a little bit more in detail of the first 10 verses of Exodus chapter 2. I'm just going to highlight one portion, one aspect of what I shared on Sunday, just to give us an encouragement, and then for us to really sit down with another person, or maybe even a small group of people, and really to learn and grow from one another. That's why I'm a huge proponent of small groups, that we need to have the right people in our lives to spur us on, for us to learn, for us to grow, because we learn and grow from one another. I'm a firm believer we cannot grow in isolation. And so I want to encourage you today. I'm going to be highlighting just a couple of verses in chapter 2, but I want to encourage you to sit down with somebody and encourage them with that, and allow that other person to encourage and challenge you as well. So again, we don't have the time right now. I go a little bit more detail on Sunday of this portion of Scripture, but this is what I want to highlight, because God, His promises are full. His promises are going to be fulfilled, and He wants to use you and I to fulfill His promises. And how He chose to deliver and to protect Moses is absolutely incredible. And so going back to chapter 1, Pharaoh is scared, he's jealous, and he's fearful. He gives this decree that all Hebrew boys need to be sentenced to death, thrown into the Nile. Through circumstances, Moses' parents were able to protect him for the first few months, but then they had to let him go. But they were very strategic on that. And not only with the basket, not only putting him along the reeds, but also sending Moses' older sister along to see what's going to happen to Moses. And so starting in verse 4 of chapter 2 says, "The baby's sister," which is Moses' older sister, "then stood at a distance, watching to see what would happen to him. Soon Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe in the river, and her attendants walked along the riverbank. When the princess saw the basket among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it for her. Then the princess opened it, and she saw the baby. The little boy was crying, and she felt sorry for him. This must be one of the Hebrew children." So this is where is very interesting. And again, it wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't just happenstance. It wasn't just luck that Pharaoh's daughter happened to be bathing on one of the banks of the Nile, right where Moses was, floating along in the basket. That was a God ordained situation right there. And not only that, the older sister, this young girl was there. And could you imagine, because she had no idea, what was going to happen to her baby brother, but now she sees from a distance, and it so happened that it's Pharaoh's daughter, probably somebody that she would have never expected nor wanted that person to find Moses, because you would think this is the father's daughter. Her father was the one who set the decree. This is genocide policy that you have to kill every baby boy that's Hebrew. But then it was in this situation here that she saw this vulnerable baby. And this is how God chooses to provide deliverance and protection to His people. In verse 7, "Then the baby's sister approached the princess. Should I go and find one of the Hebrew women to nurse the baby for you?" she asked. What boldness and what wisdom, what tenacity, that's an audacious statement right there, going to Pharaoh's daughter. She is a Hebrew, somebody that she is despised as well. All of her people are slaves, and this is royalty. This is Pharaoh's daughter. She had all of her maids next to her. I mean, this was no easy task for this young lady, this young woman, to go and ask such a high request of her. But this is how she responds in verse 8. "Yes, do," the princess replied. So the girl went and called the baby's mother. Who was the baby's mother? her very own mother. And read along. I want to encourage you to continue to read along. It's absolutely amazing how God chooses to use his people to fulfill his promises. And so that is what I want you to be encouraged by. That's what I want you to sit down with somebody or maybe in a group of people and say, what wisdom has God given me, and what boldness have I not stepped into? Because God continues, just like he gave this young woman the boldness and the wisdom to do exactly what she did. It took her effort to actually step forward and to ask that bold question. So what is God asking you to do? What is he asking you to do, and what wisdom has he given you that you have not tapped into? And let that be an encouragement. Ask those questions to your friend and allow your friend to be vulnerable and speak out, and then encourage one another to take those steps of faith, just like how Moses' older sister took steps of faith to protect her baby brother. God chooses us to fulfill his promises. What God might do in and through you as you choose to step out in faith, in obedience, and tap into his wisdom today. Hey, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you tune in tomorrow for the Daily Dose for Spiritual Growth.